Welcome back to Soul Listens. I'm Evan Hirsch, and we have a very, very special guest with us today, who we've flown in all the way from Venus, Florida, to be here for the launch of our new documentary, A World Worth Imagining, Jacque Fresco the Man with a Plan, which is a documentary that features the last interview of Jacque Fresco's life that we did out in Venus, Florida, and gives an introduction to the Venus Project and the resource-based economy, and just a hint at some of the massive, brilliant, beautiful ideas that Jacque and Roxanne have developed through the course of the decades that they were together. Such a pleasure to have you join us here in California, Roxanne.
Oh, it's really my honor. It's been so wonderful.
So we have a whole bunch to cover. We want to jump right in and pick your brain a bit and help our viewers and anyone who happens across this video to go a little deeper and learn a little more. A lot of these questions come from people's concerns that I've heard over the time that I've been presenting the Venus Project to people. And also in terms of, and we're going to start with this, is where at S.O.U.L we are all about the love paradigm and consciousness shifting, expanding our consciousness and shifting our thinking. And for us, really, that's a big part of finding that new way, is that foundational shift. And I know with the Venus Project, it's about recognizing our programming, our conditioning, that it comes from environment, that shapes our behavior, it shapes our thinking, for better or worse in many cases. And so we're often talking about the same things and maybe just a slightly different language to it. And so we want to get some clarity and really find out how much on the same page we really are. So at S.O.U.L Documentary, we're really into the concept of love for many reasons. And when I was in Venus, I read our Love Paradigm Manifesto to Jacque. It's available on our website. And he nodded in agreement after hearing, like every sentence he would nod. But whenever I read the word love, he would correct me and say extensionality. So again, it's a lot semantics, it's the wording. Why was he so opposed to the word love, and why is extensionality such a better word? Is there a place for love in the Venus Project?
Well, I guess you'd say we're more into defining our terms. And the word love has many different meanings. You have one meaning in your manifesto, but people use that word and bandy it around a lot, and it ends up not having too much meaning after a while. And especially by the people who are using that word, the behavior doesn't manifest that a lot of times. For instance, what I mean by that is, if you have a mother who constantly hugs the child and kisses it and says, "I love you," and who loves you more than anybody, mommy and daddy, and does nothing to show that. But if you have another woman who never uses that word, but is there to help the child all the time, helps them with the homework, helps them if they fall out of a tree, helps them learn how to swim, and catches them when they need it, that child would feel very secure, and the other one wouldn't. So it's not so much the word that's important. The word extensionality to Jacque meant something else.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. For instance, being able to manifest it, as I said, in terms of if you do something, if you build a house with somebody, if you build it alone, it takes a long time. If the neighborhood helps you, then that the neighborhood or those people that help are extensional to you, to extend your needs, extend your life, and to improve it. And if you have a whole community that does that, then it's that much better. If you work with somebody, an architect works with an engineer, they work as a team to do something that helps other people. When it's related more so to your own life, or one person, say, that you try and have extensionality with, it's more how Jacque used it. It's more of a genuine extensionality when it helps many different people. So, for instance, if somebody works on cleaning water, it helps the whole community. If somebody works on a vaccine to get rid of polio, it helps the person, but it also helps the community, so they won't get it either. So when a bank lends you money they do it, there's a toll to be paid. You have debt and you have obligation, so that's not real extensionality. And if we have a culture that's more extensional to one another in the real terms, then it's more of an advanced culture, and it will enable us to become more civilized. If we know the difference between just using a word that might be manipulative, and it is manipulative today in the culture. Somebody says, I love you. A guy says, I love you to a girl. What does that mean?
What does he want from her?
That's right. Does he want to get laid? Does he care about them? Do they want to share ideas? Does he want to help her become more independent and more self-sufficient? You know, then I'd say it's extensional.
Yeah, it sounds more like what I would call love, but that's why you're saying extensional, because it extends the reach and capacity of what she's therefore capable of.
Yes.
And he's extending himself to her to help bolster and support that.
Right, and Jacque always used the term, too, is that your arms are extensional devices for the body, your eyes, your ears, you know. If you lose that, it's hurtful to the whole body. I don't know if that helps a little bit with his definition. He really talking about manifesting a certain behavior so everybody improves.
And that's really what it's about with Jacque's wisdom, is helping inspire this manifestation of behavior that serves us and each other.
Yeah.
And that's the extension. We're extensional to each other. Like you said, we can be each other's eyes and ears and arm.
That's a nice way to say it, I think.
Yeah. So many people are, speaking of words, many people are conditioned to believe certain things about trigger words. So, whereas Jacque was maybe triggered by the word love, wait, love, hold on. Other people are triggered by words that they would associate with what they are assuming the Venus Project to be about. Cultism, is it a cult? Is it communism, etc.? So how is the Venus Project different from communism, socialism? How is it not a cult? What makes it different from the cult?
If you look up the definition of a cult, and I can't remember it entirely, it talks about religious, spiritualism, philosophical, or a group of people that advocate something that's different, or I don't know if it's following a particular or person or something like that. But would that mean that that philosophy was a cult, or architecture was a cult, or academia is a cult? It really has no real definition. Even sociology can't pinpoint, they can't agree on a real definition for a cult. So when they banty that word around, I don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes people might think it's a cult because it's based on somebody's life's work. But, when the Wright brothers first flew, people went to the Wright brothers when they were interested in learning about flight. Is that a cult? And when the motor industry, when Ford came up with the automobile, as he did, then people went to him to learn. He was the foremost knowledge base for learning about automobiles. So I think we are at that stage right now. I don't know anybody else who came up with these ideas and synthesized them and brought so many different disciplines together to arrive at a resource-based economy, and how that works in many different ways. Yeah.
And so you're comparing where it's as if we're coming to Jacque in the way that people came to Ford. He was the expert on the subject. You want to learn how to build a car, go to Ford. You want to learn how to create a society that actually serves us and is sustainable and elevates everyone to a high standard of living. Jacque, he's the man with that wisdom.
Right, and he never, it was funny too, because his wisdom came from a lot of other people, and he always had the book list out there. He always referred to where he learned certain things, and then he experimented on his own and put his theories to test as well in the real world. And when people come to him and say, what should I do, or what should I study, or how can I help the Venus Project, he would say, well, what do you know? He would say, go back to school and take something in the physical sciences. So again, is physics occult, or is architecture occult? And he would always, talk about engineering. Is that occult? To learn about that, and he would always say things like, "Don't make a statue to me, because that holds people back." And he would talk about how his city became a reality. It would be a straitjacket for the next generation. They would come up with their own cities with better technology, better materials, and many other things, depending on where technology was at the time.
And it sounds like this leads right into the people's fear that the Venus Project is advocating for something that's communism or socialism. And even in the film, Jacque says that this is not, it's a resource management government.
Yes.
That just the government is there to employ that allocation, that usage of resources, again, to benefit all, to a high standard of living.
That's right.
So, I mean, what do we tell people? How does that differ from communism, socialism?
Well, people do throw that at you because it's like a red flag word, communism, utopia, socialism. But even if you ask them, well, what is communism? They don't know.
They don't know. And what are you afraid of? They don't know. Losing their freedom. It's always losing their freedom.
Yeah. They don't really have any freedom if you look at this country, too, in a lot of ways. We always say you're as free as your purchasing power.
Yeah.
So, communism, first of all, they advocate a forceful or violent overthrow. The Venus Project does not at all. It really advocates deliberate evolution. So, communism in the manifesto advocates a forceful or violent overthrow, and the Venus Project doesn't do that at all. It really talks about a deliberate evolution by engineering and developing a process for what we call a resource-based economy and putting that to test and collecting data and not doing it over a broad area, but slowly work that up and scaling up. So another major thing about communism is that they think that the proletariat or the working class should run things and overthrow the wealthy. And they say that it is the class struggle is the problem throughout history. But we feel, and I think it's more known now, that the real problem is the mismanagement of resources under scarce conditions, because the wealthy and the poor are the byproduct of that circumstance. So we try and talk about producing abundance and how that would be managed, and how you make things available and accessible to people. So it's really not communism. And we talk about how to manage on a large scale through production, distribution, how total city systems would be different, how we arrive at the needs of people by surveying. And so it's based on understanding the real world and what we have, and based on a systems approach to managing things, so we deliberately know what we're doing and accounting for as many variables as we can and resources. So it's quite different in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really is. It's really, again, it just comes back to really providing for people, elevating everyone to a high standard of living. And I think in these communism, socialism environments that have existed in the world, everyone's been oppressed and they've had their rights and their privileges taken away and their comforts, and that's why everyone's afraid of it, I think.
And there was elitism.
Yeah.
Just like in this country, there was elitism. And there was banks, and there was military, and there was police, and we talk about how to make a society where we can surpass those needs.
Evolve beyond them.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're saying deliberate evolution, we say conscious evolution. Again, maybe just semantics, and the concepts are really quite similar, if not identical.
Right.
So that's good. You clearly have a broad curriculum for educating people and about the culture and the value system of the Venus Project, such as collaboration versus competition, the resource-based economy model, and reconditioning away from the capitalist system. The programming that we all receive to believe that that works for us and that that's the only way. Free market and libertarians. So how would your new way, your new conditioning, your new education, and the mindset be taught and implemented? How is that cultural transition handled?
Well, we're doing all we can right now in terms of, we think that media has a big approach has the best approach with that. And Jacque always talked about wanting to do a movie, and we have kind of expanded and grown into a transmedia project, so it includes a lot of different media, and we are continuing with that, and that's vitally important. So, you know, you don't just, somebody gets up and lectures, that transmedia is based on world building, and the world would be based on what Jacque had talked about, and new things that we learned after that, in science and technology. So people will see what they're missing. I think it's the best way, other than books or lectures, or so people can just, as I mentioned, step into the future and walk out of there and say, I would like to see that happen, because they know nothing else. People aren't given options to understand that there's something other than communism, socialism, free enterprise system, fascism. So we have to show that, what it could be like for them.
So this is more kind of Center for Resource Management, Museum of the Future type
Yes.
implementation, where you're teaching people now what you have in mind. How about like the transition of it coming into, say, a city within the Venus Project? And I mean, is there a whole different education system right now? We have the K through 12, and you're indoctrinated into the American way or the Indian way or the British way. Do you have a similar program like that in mind, where you're brought into the Venus Project way?
Well, all cultures teach kids how to honor that culture. How else could they get them to go to war? You know, all kids are given the values that perpetuate whatever country that they're raised in. And they don't even know it, but the control is so subtle, we don't feel the manipulation after a while. And we think that it comes from us, but it doesn't. Everything that we learn comes from the outside. And so, just like any other culture in that way, except what we teach is very different, is we would teach how to perpetuate a resource-based economy, which means learning the sciences, learning how we can get clean sources of energy, how we can clean up the mess that we've done today, how we can develop efficient cities that can go up quickly so we can house, feed, and clothe everyone on Earth as quickly as possible. So what we would teach within the Venus Project would be the problems that we have today and how to solve them, not how to make a buck, how to abuse another person so you can make a buck faster. Nothing to do with business or banking or advertising or stockbrokers, because you don't have money anymore within that system eventually. So those professions would be surpassed. They're really kind of vulture professions, really, because they don't serve the interests of everybody.
And Jacque, one thing I love that he said is, with the technology that we have and with the concepts he's putting forward, we can elevate every person on the planet to a high standard of living, a comfortable, have all your needs met, and creature comfort standard of living in 10 years.
We've never put that to scientists.
Right.
We've never gone to scientists and say, how do you develop a society without any booms and busts, with clean sources of energy, with efficient housing for everyone, and medical care from birth to death? How, you know, from scratch, if you had to think about it, how would you do that? So we use our resources, our technology, so we don't hurt one another. We've just never turned to scientists and given them that problem. And it would be scientists we would have to go to, because our problems today are are really technical. They're not philosophical. They're not religious. They've tried that. It doesn't work on a moral stance. They're they're technical. Everything that you have, primarily your windows, your refrigeration, your heating, your energy systems, they're all technical, but they don't work for us. They work for very few people who reap the benefits or the money from those systems. And so ultimately it works against everybody.
Yeah, this is one thing I love about the Venus Project is this completely different approach, looking at things through a different lens, coming from a different angle, with a different value system at its core and a different end result in mind. Yeah. So, so what about leadership? Is there leadership within the Venus Project, and how are they selected? How do you assure they align fully with all the values of Jacque's vision and that they're effective leaders? You've been alongside him for many decades as his surviving partner. Does that make you the automatic leader now? And is his vision allowed to evolve over time? You know, or is it just the ultimate authority? You know, I never felt like Jacque was on some pedestal and the Chairman Mao, that image that's everywhere.
No, he wouldn't want that. He was just to say, I'm just like everybody else,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I just had a different background. Anybody can learn how to draw, anybody can learn engineering, and you know, we can all do that in a different environment, which enables us to do that. There's no privileged people. That's when you run into problems. So,
well, what about actual leader? I mean, someone needs to tell us, okay, where do I be? How do we do this? What about like a hierarchy or a structure there? Is that they're planned for, or what? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about within a resource-based economy, people, what determines decision making are our needs, which means we would have to take a survey of the globe to know what we have. You know, if somebody said, I want to make stainless steel roofs on all the houses, well, do we have that? What should it be used for? Ultimately, really, we have to survey, take a lot of data, arrive at a lot of data, and the survey would determine where our resources are, what we have, where the water is, where the arable land is, what are the people's needs, what are the dangers in different areas, you know, like a fault line. We wouldn't want to build cities on the fault lines, or how do we build in relation to hurricanes, and what are the winds, and what can they withstand? So it's really based on the methods of science applied to the way we live. The decisions would be, you know, if you want to build a bridge, if the survey people said we need a bridge from here to there to transport different materials, then we would go to those who have experience in bridge building. We wouldn't go to a baker. If you need your appendix out, you don't want to take a vote in the neighborhood and see which one that people, you know, which doctor or even who should do it. So it's really a knowledge based on getting many different disciplines together who are professional in different areas to make the decisions in those areas. It's not based on opinions, but based on data. You know, if you walk into an airplane, you don't walk up to the pilot and tell them the ground speed needed for takeoff. That's based on many different test flights under various weather conditions and other conditions. It's not the opinion. We're not interested in opinions. It's not the opinion of the passengers or even the pilot, but the data accumulated. So that if you want to know, for instance, what food to grow in a particular soil, you bring that soil to the lab, and that will determine through testing and experimentation what to grow there, and then when to rotate the crops and to what. It's not based on opinions or based on a certain advantage of a very few people, because they would acquire more money. This is how our decisions are made today.
But doesn't someone need to run that lab? Who decides who gets into that lab? What level of qualifications? Who decides which person's opinion we accept as the one that we're now going to use?
Well, those that have a background and have passed certain tests, certain qualifications, been approved from other people who are in that field. But it's not a matter of, people don't get acclaim or Nobel Prizes for certain positions. They do it because they really care about one another and the earth, and they don't get more money because of it. They're not. There's no kind of judgment or admiration for certain people because they have money, because there is no money. So you don't pay off what you know or what you can get done. So it's really people who care about the whole process. I forgot where I was going to go with that.
But you're kind of saying we get the brightest and the best, and
I know what I was going to say with
their
that.
level determines their impact.
Yes, and if there's a dispute about, well, you know, I have this design for a plane or a transportation unit, and that somebody says, well, I have this design, you put resources to both, and you figure out through statistical data which is best. And you might choose one now, but you might, when things change and materials become updated and different new things are learned, you might change that.
So is this sort of decision by committee then, in a way? Like teams, like you have these volunteer teams now? Is that the way you envision things being decided in the future?
Well, those who are more knowledgeable in the field. And yes, teamwork is better than somebody dictating what happens, unless there's one person that has more experience than somebody else in the job that needs to be done.
Yeah, so I like this, because it really, what you're saying is we do what makes sense. We listen to the guidance of those who are the most versed in the subject. And
we don't go out, it's not a democracy. We don't go say, what's your opinion, what's your opinion? It's really, what do you know? And what do you base that knowledge on? What did you study? What did you, where is this statement coming from? Can you back it up? You know.
So, along those lines, science and medicine seem to present opposite viewpoints on so many things. So, yeah, how is it determined what fact and wisdom to employ, like in the hospitals and energy generation and transportation? I realize that today, with the monetary system and competition and all the corporations having to set themselves apart, that gets really convoluted. And what we're talking about is a society in which things make a lot more sense, and they're done for completely different reasons. But is this just a matter of consensus and decision by committee, or again, how is it determined what fact and wisdom is the one that we're going to choose?
It's really the same thing. Things are put to test. Yeah. They're not based on somebody because they're in a position. You have to back up where those decisions come from, and as I mentioned, statistical data and verification, and other people being able to run the same processes that person did to come up with the same results.
Further verification.
Yeah.
Like it's put to the test.
Right.
It's vetted out.
That's true, yep. So there's really no problem with that in this type of society, because, you know, as I said, it's not based on opinions.
So how about as far as...
Oh, I just want to mention, I was going to go with that, but you had already said it earlier. Today there is a problem, because whatever information comes out, it's usually used for somebody's benefit or an advantage, or economic advantage, primarily. So you don't know where to go with these things. It's very hard to even science has been corrupted in the monetary system. So I don't even think in a lot of ways we would know many things until after that completely gets out of the system. Then there'd be a lot of research done to verify certain things.
Yeah, exactly. We don't even need to get too deeply into about how people from corporate world are involved in government world, and the nepotism and the science that's paid for, and who's the one footing the bill, therefore which way are things swayed in the scientific result. Once we eliminate that, now we've got true science. We've got actual best practices to determine things.
Right. And even in the universities, it's backed up by certain corporations and certain money. So, you know, you don't want to go against the people who are giving you that money. And
it's a trap.
It
It's
is.
such a trap, and that's what I love about the Venus Project. It liberates us from that exact trap right there. Who are we serving? That's the bottom
right,
line.
that's
Who
it.
are we serving?
Yeah, for whose benefit?
Yeah, and in the Venus
That's
Project,
right.
we're serving ourselves, our human family, our human race, our precious planet. That's a big, different, vastly different modus operandi when that's what your value system is at the core.
And it comes down to when all the Earth's resources become the common heritage of all the Earth's people, then all that corruption becomes, it's gone.
It's obsolete.
Really.
Let's
Yeah.
render corruption obsolete. There's
your
the bottom
t-shirt
line. There,
for you.
yeah, the Venus Project, rendering corruption obsolete. Perfect. Let's do that. Here's a good. This is a personal one for me, really. Many people feel that violent imagery in movies and video games, etc., incites violence by normalizing it. How would that be handled in the Venus Project? Would those be allowed, or are you really condoning censorship?
I always like the statement that said, in the future, the horror movies would be movies of today.
Yeah, right.
You know?
But people feel they get off on that. They don't enjoy a movie unless they kill them. Do we want that to be part of our world in the future? And how do we evolve forward from that when people are so attached to it?
People are manipulated to that viewpoint, and they even have you know, processes when you're making a movie, and so much trauma here. It's a whole formula that they've come up with that they keep pushing and pushing,
to
and
make
people,
money off that movie.
Yeah, and people are conditioned to seeing that too. So, you know, what people experience and what in the past, or even now, you see kids that are going to the movies and eating popcorn and getting very excited with some monster taking their claws and ripping out the intestines or whatever the horrifying thing is, but they don't let people in a movie watch somebody making love to another person, or the breast showing, or somebody touching a breast, you know, but they let kids go and see these kind of movies. And what do you want with kids? Because everything, you're always being conditioned, whatever your experience, that formulates how a person thinks, or a child thinks, or the things that they want to see. And besides, these things condition people to go to war. When you have competitive sports and football, when they're ramming their head against another person's head, and they become mentally damaged, and they just use them. They don't really care for them when they let that happen. You watch people make money off of somebody punching somebody in the head and damaging their head, and they get excited about that. You know,
how do we evolve people forward? People love that, though. My dad watches professional football all day on Sunday. Are we going to take that away from him?
Well, that primes people for war.
Yeah.
You know, us against them. You keep people working 5 days a week, and then Saturday they have to do all their chores, go food shopping, clean the house. Sunday, you keep them dulled down in front of a football game that gets them excited about violence, and that's all very useful.
Yeah, it's bread and circus. Keep them distracted and give them just enough to eat, and then they won't rebel and revolt. But again, like if I told my dad, you're not going to get to watch football anymore, we're not doing it anymore, you'd be taking away his best friend, his comfort. How do we do that?
And there's a lot of education with that too. You know, even you use everything for education, and you can teach them what they're really being exposed to and how they're being manipulated, and you really have to give them other things to replace that.
Yeah, of course. But I think what you're saying in a way is speak to their compassion. Like, Dad, do you know how these people who play this game that you get so much pleasure out of watching, do you know that they're all crippled by the time they're 60 years old? They're crippled. They're going to experience, do you want them to experience pain for their whole life? They were like making a sacrifice for you to get a thrill watching that.
Yeah.
Is that what you want for your human family? To me, that's when we speak to people's sensitivities and their compassion, is when we can help them evolve their consciousness to something that's more compassionate in action.
And where the money goes, and how much money football players get and teachers don't get and scientists don't get, and what kind of world do we want, you know, ultimately.
Which kind of world do you want to support moving forward? Yeah. Is that thrill worth it for your Sundays? And can we find anything else to do on a Sunday that would feel more productive, more constructive, more compassionate, and that's helping us move forward? Do you want to keep us stuck, or do you want to help us move forward? I think that's kind of the bottom line.
Right, and I think which keeps people stuck is they don't have options.
Yeah.
You know, they really are not given that many options. You can't go up to many people and say, where are you going next year on your world cruise? And you know why. They open their checkbook and they just close it again.
Going nowhere.
Yeah, and fast.
I can afford to go around the corner.
So in a culture where they have many more options, I don't think they would do that as much, and especially as they learn from a young age so many other things that are more exciting and opened up to travel, learning things, sharing things with people, making things. Yeah.
So I'm glancing at my next question. I'm thinking, boy, I can already hear the answer, because the answer to a lot of these is really the same. Re-education, 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 reconditioning, helping people discover their own value system and that it doesn't align with the way we're living. And so there's so much polarization between people in the United States and in the world, really, especially between nationalities and religions. They're afraid they'll lose what they hold dear and what they consider their identity to be. So how are they accommodated? How are we accommodated in the Venus Project? You know, is there every type of church that there is, or no churches at all? How about, you know, the people who wear religious clothing or pray 5 times a day? Do they give up what they hold dear? Are we going to be able to re-educate them that you were given a mindset that didn't serve you? And how do people hold that they think it's them? They think they owe their life to Jesus Christ, and if they did anything against that, they're not going to heaven.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that?
Well, first of all, you don't come in and overcome it. You have to have people who are exposed to that understand that, have learned something else, and they can best approach those people too. But
so it's like the recovered alcoholic teaching the alcoholics how to get through it.
It works much better that way.
Yeah.
But you can't strip people of that, or you
Right.
can't forcefully say you can't do that. It goes underground. You have to
So
give
do you
them
give
a
them
reason
every church
to.
then?
Well, you might give them a building, and people can use it as a church. You can divide it up, but it's used for something else during the week. You know what I mean? So, and you introduce into the sermons different ways of thinking about things, because they listen to that sometimes if it's interesting at all to them.
Or if it's delivered in a way that they're accustomed to hearing, or that they'll buy into.
You open up more so what the sermons are saying, but it's just like if that's where people are at, where they watch soap operas, then you put educational things into soap operas.
So it sounds like it's really a transition. It's like you develop you deliberately evolve, but that evolves. It doesn't happen overnight.
And that's how kids or people in sociology or behaviorism are not graded, but learn certain things when they can change people's behaviors and values. That's a test. And that's the job, really, that has to be worked on in the future. But not my values or somebody else's particular values, but how we relate to the world and one another, and how we can bring everyone up so you don't have war, you don't have poverty, you don't have differences in different religions and controversies, mine's better, you're not going to heaven unless you have mine. They create a lot of problems. And as long as, it's like during the Great Depression, it was a very scary time for people who were in positions of differential advantage or had a lot of money or power, because they would keep people separated deliberately, but they had something called the Wobblies, where things got so bad that all the labor unions joined together. The blacks, the Chinese, the whites, the white collar, the blue collar, the women, and they all joined together as a force. And keeping them separate is an advantage for those who are running the factories.
Divide and conquer.
That's right.
Simple as that.
So, and it's still going on.
Oh, of course.
So, you know, we blame the immigrants who were coming in, the aliens, it's like they came in from outer space or something. So this is used throughout the whole culture, and if people understand those things and what they're used for, they broaden it more towards the brotherhood of, or the sisterhood, or the humanity of all humanity, you know, that we all need the same things. We all need clean water, clean air, relevant education, suitable housing, medical care from birth to death. We need to be able to have a relevant an education so we can achieve our highest potentials. So we all need the same things.
Let's do that. Let's provide. So, good. Some people believe that a healthy lifestyle is fruits and vegetables. Other people believe that humans need meat. We've always hunted. Who gets to believe they're getting the healthy food they need? Who decides what food is available?
Same thing in terms of being able to put things to test, how people react, how diseases, you know, if they eat certain foods, if they want to, okay, but can we study you? But, and you can make foods taste like other foods too if people still need that. Or if they're exposed to better foods, I think they would have a taste for different foods if they knew the consequences of what a unhealthy lifestyle would give them.
I mean, my one hand, I feel like, okay, well, we can be weaned off of anything and our palate adjusted. And on the other hand, a lot of people think that that's manipulation. You're manipulating me. And we're manipulating you to pursue your own health and well-being. We're manipulating you into a value system that would actually serve you. You've been manipulated into a value, into a practice in life that doesn't serve you, that isn't healthy or sustainable. And when you look around, people are sick. They're taking pills, they're going to doctor appointments, and they're not well, and they're dying prematurely before they have to, and their quality of life is suffering because they're sick.
And somebody's making a lot of money off that. But we are always controlled, like you say, and people don't know that. They're set, and their values and their likes and their dislikes have been given to them for whose benefit.
Yeah, they're being sold a bill of goods, literally and figuratively. And it's really true that the two underlying things of getting off of money and not having that as the incentive, so everything's nefarious and manipulated for someone's gain, and then that we're re-educating and reconditioning into a new environment that will shape new types of behavior. Not rah, rah, rah at the football, but hey, let's go build this thing. Hey, let's make this better food. Let's get people healthier. Let's get enthusiastic about getting healthier and having compassion to help each other get healthier. Why on earth wouldn't we do that? Seriously, what are we doing?
It doesn't make money today.
We're just pawns. We're so fooled.
Yeah.
It's sad, but I think there's hope, and the Venus Project is what gives me hope, because it's so sad, and I don't see it changing at all in any other way.
We hear that from a lot of people, that it gives hope.
Yeah. Okay, so animals as well. People feel that animals have rights and should never be exploited for our purposes. Does that mean, do we eliminate leather in the Venus Project? How about animal experiments? If it helps us advance our science by testing on the animals rather than humans, do we do that? Or is that an ethical dilemma?
I think we have to kind of learn where our attitudes come from, where our desires come from, and how we can put science towards making other things to substitute those things. If they hurt people, if they hurt animals, if they hurt the environment. But they're doing some wonderful things with testing with human tissues and cells, and replicating different organs in our body and running tests that way. And also through huge data based computers.
Yeah, and models.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was the word I was thinking of.
Yeah, so we sort of move beyond that need
Yeah.
to test on the animals, and we can make mushroom leather now and all kinds of vegan products, as they call them in many cases.
And why do we even want leather? We want something that will cover us and keep us warm.
Right. Well, we want a
that's-
strong material like to hold our pants up or to keep our
Yeah.
shoes or our feet protected from the environment, something sturdy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't
That
have
can
to
be
come from
duplicated.
the animal. Yeah. Okay, here's one. I mean, again, every question I have goes to like to the same kind of thing, but many people in the United States feel very strongly that they deserve their right to bear arms. How is the subject of guns handled in the Venus Project, and what happens to the hundreds of millions of guns that are already here?
Well, there's a reason why people want guns. In this culture, I can understand that. But if you're within a culture where, say, people have access to goods, if you can get something, the other person can go into the access center and get that same product or have the same service. So you don't have, somebody doesn't have to come into your house and steal it.
And you don't have anything to protect, therefore, because they can get theirs.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we look for the conditions in the culture and surpass those. So we look at the sources of the problems and try and design a culture that designs those problems out of the system. You can't do it by laws. Laws just show that you have an inadequate culture, that you have to put laws and regulations. When they make laws, don't steal, who makes those laws? Those people who have something to steal.
So what problem were you solving by having that gun, and then solve that problem so you make the gun obsolete?
Right.
And what do we literally, like, physically do with all the guns? That's a lot of guns. There's a lot of steel that's gone into
You
weaponry.
reprocess that and you use the steel and you know, those are valuable materials.
Yeah.
So
I saw a great story once about a guy, I think Mexico or some Central American country, where he was melting down guns and making shovels. What was that?
that's great.
Swords to plowshares,
Yeah.
plowshares, right? That kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
We can do better, right? We can do better. How about the really controversial stuff, right? Abortion, boy, that's a hot topic. Drugs, euthanasia, assisted suicide.
I don't know if there's any real controversial or hot topics when you put things to test and you show people under different circumstances what happens if this happens, what happens if that happens, what happens when you have an overpopulation, it turns into territorial disputes, wars, scarcity, you know, if you have scarcity. So people have to understand those things. And, you know, in educated countries, they automatically have less children. In the old days, they needed children to run the farms. So many people would die, had to take care of the elderly. We don't have to do that in a culture where people are taken care of. So you know you'll be taken care of too when you get older, as Jacque mentioned in the video.
Well, I mean, there's a fundamental debate. At what stage is an embryo or a fetus a life? You know, I mean, where does that go?
It comes from religion. Yeah. And eventually religion has to be surpassed because those problems will continue. Yeah.
Those stories are holding us back from real compassion, real value systems.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're living our great grandparents' values over and over again, because the value system hasn't changed. The technology is getting much better, and we can serve people with it if we set up an environment that does that. It's abusing people today, but our values aren't changing.
Is there a little bit of a conflict there, though, with our biology? Like, every animal on Earth is programmed in their DNA to reproduce, to propagate their species and carry it on. That's part of the meaning of life, is to keep that life going, not let it end. So people have that they feel that biological imperative. We even say, oh, the biological clock is ticking. It's time to have babies or you're not going to be able to. And obviously, if everyone on Earth keeps having babies and we keep getting healthier and able to sustain life longer, our population is going to, I mean, we think it's exploded now. It's going to really explode. So is this just a matter of education of, I know you feel you want to have babies, but not everyone's going to be able to. And we just have to take responsibility for not making so many babies?
Yes, we're going to have some kind of population control.
Yeah, curb.
Unless, you know, the consequences are pretty dire if we don't.
And we see them.
Yeah, and you know, if people don't necessarily have sex to have babies, you can still have sex. It's not the purpose. Yeah, and they really do hit up on women. You know, when they're young, they get dolls to take care of children, and it's programmed from the beginning. So
the white wedding too. Every girl dreams of her white wedding.
And the gold ring.
It's not hers.
Yeah, and how long do weddings, the marriages usually last? Yeah.
And the diamond, put the rock on her finger.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, if the rock wasn't nice enough, you're not the guy.
And would that be the woman that you want with those values?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Does she want me just for the rock, or does she really love me? You know, is she going to care about me or yell at me for what I'm doing or not doing?
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of times women are just ornaments on men's arms too, because that's what they push on television.
Let's push something else on television, the internet, or wherever we get our information. So
I just wanted to mention something else with the children, and a lot of times people, to show that it is pushed, you know, the family have your kid. If people really cared about having kids or kids in general, they would be working with kids before they were having kids. But they just want their own kids to go down into history. Who, like Jacque used to say, who's going to water your grave after 200 years? They don't.
That's true. It's serving the ego.
Yeah.
That's one valuable thing to learn, is when we're serving our ego and when we're actually serving a value system, because they're often at odds.
And all kids are lovable.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you have community, you can love all the kids in the community.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to have your own pet. When everyone's got a pet, you can, you know, pet the neighborhood's dogs. You still get the interface.
And I think, again, there'll be so many more options in the future that I don't think that people will want that as much.
Yeah, give alternatives. Yeah. Alternatives to watching the football, alternative to having the kids, alternative to eating the bacon and the ice cream and the stuff that, gosh, we know. We live in a world where if you try to be healthy, you're a nut. You're a health nut. We know. How often do we say, I know I shouldn't be eating this. I know I shouldn't have another. Well, it triggers dopamine in the brain, and that's a powerful force compelling us to do something.
It controls you.
Yeah. Well, some people, Ray Kurzweil being one of the most vociferous and loudest ones, believe we are inevitably heading for the singularity. We're going to merge with the machine. Some people feel it's a very dangerous way to go, and perhaps starting with a chip embedded in our skin or right in with the brain, some want to literally upload their consciousness to the computer. How does this AI and this type of merge between biology and technology fit in with the Venus Project?
Well, it's really kind of arrogant and unrealistic to think that people are the end product of evolution.
Yeah.
And we are merging either inside or outside with machines all the time. You know, we have pacemakers, we have artificial limbs, we have artificial kidneys, hearts, and that enhances our lives. But today, in the free enterprise system, that notion scares me a lot because the technology today is used for surveillance, it's used for destruction, it's used when people lose their jobs, they lose their homes, there's no provisions, they lose their homes, they can lose their wives, their husbands, they can lose the kids' ability to go to school, they can lose their identity because that's their identity, their job, not what they're learning, what they know, how they relate to other people. So in today's society, I would be very afraid of it because it means surveillance and it's used against you, not to help you.
Track you, yeah, surveillance.
Yeah,
So,
and manipulate you and use you. So.
But so the point is that to the extent that technology serves to enhance our lives and serve us and improve the quality of our life or the quantity of our life or our health, that's a good thing. We should take advantage. We should get the chip in the head if that enhances our intelligence and enables us to function better.
We're going to be surpassed. There has to be some kind of interface so we can keep up with what's going on in the world, but today it's I would be afraid of it.
Yeah. But so we need to be very careful in this culture and environment, in the economic environment, the cultural environment, the political environment, especially the religious environment, to be very careful about how much we let the machine in. But if we've evolved into the Venus Project, the resource-based economy, the new culture, then those things can really serve us.
You don't have to be afraid of technology at that point. And when technology comes along and does something better, faster, more efficiently than you, and you lose your job, yes, you're happy because that means your standard of living is higher, because anything that's produced goes right back into society for everyone's use without a price tag or without money. So, right, you're happy to see the machines. Then you can do other things that you're interested in.
This is great because I really felt like there's no going back. We have that device in our hand. It just it's to be a lot easier. When the glasses thing came out, that seemed easier. You don't have to hold it, and it shows you the map and where you're headed right in front of your eyes. But again, it feels so icky and nefarious, and Big Brother's slipping in because it kind of is right now. It's surveillance, it's government, it's corporate. They want to market to us. They want to find out our buying habits and what we like, and so that they can just market to us more and sell us more stuff.
If you get all of that out of society, and then you have a different kind of surveillance. If you go out in a boat, you're surveilled.
They're looking
so if
out for
anything
you.
happens, they know where to find you. Yes.
They're not looking out.
They're not using or abusing you.
Yeah.
There's no need for that.
Yeah. No,
There's nothing to be gained by abusing somebody else. But if you help them raise up and become more educated, then they contribute to your standard of living. It's kind of like functional selfishness.
Yeah, and we all gain.
That's
we
right.
all benefit.
If you set up the circumstances to make that happen.
It's why this fundamental shift is so important, Roxanne, because we're heading for it anyway. And it's like, which are we going to do? Is it going to be Big Brother, or is it going to be all of us, human family?
I think the hard part about it is that people aren't aware of the alternative, or that there is an alternative. So they want to go back to nature, or they want to go back to religion, or, make a little commune that takes care of them and the hell with everybody else.
Which in this society makes you want to do that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but let's create a society where, we don't want to leave it. Why would we do that? This is great.
Yes.
Everyone cares, and everyone gets everything they need.
Yeah. And that would just be beginning of the civilized world, as Jacque used to say.
Let's see what civilized would look like. Let's give it a try. I mean, it can't be any worse. It can't be any worse. And interesting, because I had the question about, what about people who don't choose to live in the Venus Project? How are they affected when the Venus Project becomes worldwide? But
they don't have to.
Yeah, they don't have to. And like you're saying, why would they not want to?
Yeah. Jacque used to mention that, say somebody like the Amish people who want to live on their own and like to make things out of wood.
And don't want to use technology.
Yeah, but if it burns down, they're responsible. And if they want to eat certain foods, then great. Can we study that? See how that works. See how that lifestyle works. See what we can get. That's right.
Yeah, I agree. The Amish might have something to offer all of us. I don't know, but I think certainly as a reaction to the way things are now, having a simpler way makes sense to me. But on the other hand, why give up all this beautiful technology and advancement in science and knowledge that we have and just throw it away? That seems like leaving something on the table that was really valuable.
Absolutely, if it serves you. Otherwise, if we got rid of the the technology, we'd have slaves. We'd be pulling the boats. Some people would be the slaves.
Yeah.
Now we have tons of slaves, but they're technical slaves. So that's
In
much
their
better.
cubicles, hammering away.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the Venus Project advocates for surveying resources to determine the Earth's carrying capacity, and you've talked about that. What happens when the data shows we're already beyond that capacity? I mean, what if it shows we're okay currently, but are extremely limited in how much room there is to grow?
Well, the resource-based economy is managing resources on a global scale, understanding what we have and how to use them wisely to fit in with the carrying capacity. So, either way you look at it, we're here if we are, the resource-based economy still serves our interests better if we're in dire straits, which we are, in terms of how to use resources and how to enable everybody to have access to those resources. But even the wealthiest of today would have a higher standard of living, and because everybody would be trained in something that could contribute to their lifestyle too. It doesn't seem like a very high standard of living when they have bulletproof windows on their cars in some countries so their kids won't be stolen for ransom, when they have bars on their windows and helicopters on their rooftops to escape.
And they're eating their foie gras all by themselves.
And they are afraid of some kind of revolt. So, the people on the outside, they're afraid of them coming in and taking what they have and they don't have. So, Jacque had a great saying. Somebody came up to him who was very wealthy and said, "Jacque, you're so smart, how come you're not wealthy?" And he said, "You're wealthy, how come you're not smart?" And a lot of times people are smart in business, but they're failures as a human being in their lives. They can't, communicate with their kids or their wives or other people in their company. They're alone and doing drugs, just to dummy things down.
Hiring someone else to raise their kids.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of life that is.
They're isolated. We're an ultra-social being, and they're isolating them. So they're going against our nature, which is to care and to nurture each other and to live as in society and in community.
And
when you have this elite society, they're off over there. That's not where we want to. We don't want to be off anywhere. It's lonely off over there.
Yeah, and it's not really. I'm not advocating the wealthy against the poor, as I mentioned. That's what communism does. But it's about a culture against scarcity.
Abundance for all.
So we can use our resources that can go around for everybody, even if we have a scarcity in something, we put scientists on that so they develop that product to fill in for that service. There's a lot of things within the resource-based economy that enables resources to go much farther, like the library and the access center. Just like the public library, people can go in and share the books and bring them back when they're not using it. It's the same thing with the access center, where people can go in and access whatever they need. There's no possession, so they don't have to hoard it. You continue this culture because they keep buying and selling things. That keeps the monetary system going. But you don't have to do that. You can make resources go farther when, if you're finished with something, you bring it to the access center, or it's brought to the access center and other people can use it. If you don't use it every day, you don't need to hoard things or store things or wait for on your vacation to use your whatever you want to use, your skis. Your skis are right there at the resort, and you have the best skis because you don't want to make things to wear out and break down, because that's a burden on everybody.
Built-in obsolescence.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful, because it's really we're laying the groundwork for it now with the shared economy, with the car services where you don't need a car, people are driving around and you hop in. People are even taking their own car and renting it out at the times they're not using it. Okay, I get to work at 9 in the morning and I'm not going to leave till 5 o'clock. From 9 to 5, my car's available. Well, you're getting money for it now because we need money to pay the rent and turn the utilities on. But in a world where we don't have that, then hey, I'm not using the car, take it. Just get me back by 5 because I got to get, great.
And we don't really want cars. We want efficient transportation that takes you any place you want to go.
Yeah, I love that. Jacque used to say, you don't want money, you want access to things.
That's right.
So you don't want a car, you want to get where you need to go. If we have a great way to do that, you'd use it.
And when people say, well, what do you want? They really don't know what they want. And a lot of times when I first used to hear Jacque say this, you have to tell them what they want to want. What are you doing, you know? But I understand that more so now, because you ask people what they want. They want a good job that makes a lot of money so they can get another house and give their wife what they want and send their kids to the best school. You don't want the job, you want access to those things. So people can go in and check out whatever they want. And
sure sounds
have
like
access
utopia
to
to me. You
schools.
don't call it utopia, but it's if utopia is everything works and everyone's content and everyone has their needs met, then you know we're just talking semantics. It is a world that is why don't we call it functional, you know, and serving. You know,
Well,
to all of us.
it's not a utopia because there is no end goal that we're going for. It's a better step than what we have now by far, because we are going over that precipice, and we'll probably, you know, to be able to survive in this world, we're going to have to do something else because this is not working.
Yeah.
So utopia, I think, literally means nowhere, but it's emergent society.
It's emergent.
Yes,
it's emerging.
Yes, it's constantly changing and improving and updating. So there is no fixed thing that we're working toward. There is no utopia.
Yeah. So, okay, here's how I want to kind of wrap this up, because Roxanne, you are the one. You are representing the Venus Project for all intents and purposes. You are. These are Jacque's ideas and concepts, and you were right there alongside him for over 40 years, building the models, building the buildings at the Venus Project current property with your own hands. You know more about Jacque and what he has expounded than anyone in the world for sure, and you're the sort of figurehead for all intents and purposes, and not that it's seen as a hierarchy like that, but you've inherited all this wisdom and information and all of his work, and you're at the helm for all intents and purposes. And as much as we love you, and you may be so healthy right now, and I must add to this that we were talking this morning, you're staying in our home, and we're really into promoting healthy lifestyle and learning and growing and emerging, and how can we be healthier. My diet has narrowed, and I've gotten rid of all the things that I believe to be harmful until we narrow it down. And you are amazing, because I don't know if we won't say your age, but at your age, you are one of the few people I know in the world who is on no medication, not running around to doctors all the time. You are a healthy person. But as healthy as you may be right now, you certainly won't be around forever. And are there others being groomed to take the helm at the time of your inevitable demise? And what are the plans for the Venus Project beyond Jacque and Roxanne, and what provisions are in place for that?
Lots of provisions, and we're working on that now. And I don't really look at myself as at the helm, because I work with many different people that do many different things that I can't do within the organization. And even the board of directors for the nonprofit organization, we work, I don't know if I would say consensus, but we work together on making certain decisions that have to be proven out. You know, we have certain processes where we, for decision making, I think Nate called it, you can cut this out, but I can't, the baloney detector, you know, how we
call it bullshit detector in the punk scene.
I think it was something else, so cut that out, because I don't remember. He had a good, that was just something I had remembered someplace else, so please cut that. But, so there are many people who are working on this, and the matching campaign is going to help tremendously on this, because we want to get Jacque's work out there to the general public, and we're going to be transcribing all these videos over, well, we have about 700 more to go. He did over 800 audio and video, because he was more prolific with his lectures. So all of this is going out to as many people as possible, and we want to educate as many people as possible so they can carry this out, so it doesn't turn into what we already have. That's a huge fear as we take on more people and do things, and we want to be able to educate them as well as to where we're going and what we want to do. So I don't really look at myself maybe as much as maybe other people might look at, that I am the figurehead and I am at the helm, There's many people behind this and working on it. And we want to bring in many more people who are very skilled in other areas that we need. And that's another thing that we want to do with the funds that we're trying to get, is to bring in those who can research and do the literary reviews of information that we are lacking in, to carry this further in the transmedia or the Center for Resource Management. We're a voluntary organization, and because of that, we can't pay for those things that we need, so we're going to do it through scholarships, through grad students, or however we can, to get that information and the most up-to-date information, and people who can search that, survey that, put it together, and can summarize the information that we need to go further.
So is this grassroots?
You could call it that, yes, yes.
Yeah. I know you have something called POC, which is an acronym that stands for Point of Contact.
Yeah.
And to I don't want to say earn, but maybe to earn that title, being a point of contact, you've done a certain amount of research and educating yourself through all of the materials of the Venus Project to be able to represent it in an accurate way.
Well, it's not all the materials, because we're talking about 800 hours
Well,
of lectures.
But enough to a sufficient level to be able to represent it accurately and true to the Venus Project.
In some areas, I mean, that's saying a lot, because it's a hell of a lot of lifetime of work that he did in many different disciplines. So it takes a lot of study, and it also takes a lot of study in the things that he bases this on that have changed over the years and have progressed. So we need to study that as well to see how it progresses. And in terms of grassroots, I'm not sure how I would say that, because it needs a lot of people who are skilled in many different fields. And I don't know if you would call that grassroots, but so we're looking into scholars that can put different information together that we need as well, be able to scan information that way. So we need the help of a lot of different people in different disciplines, and academia as well, which Jacque really was not able to reach out to. And I think also times have changed, and I think his direction is being appreciated more in the sciences. We are getting more people behind us who are in academia, who want to teach it in universities, and I think this is really important. It's a direction that we're moving toward. We want to reach out to different people in different fields that we need the help with, and who can push this more so. So I don't know if that would be called grassroots. It's throughout the society that we need help with to make this happen, and especially business management at this time. It's not something the people who are in our group are highly skilled on, but business management that continues and correlates with our values and our social direction, that they understand that.
I think of, again, just going back to the representation, we have right now, you're the, I don't know, most noteworthy representative of the Venus Project because of the amount of time that you've put in and that you spent at Jacque's side. And so it's a matter of growing that base of representation.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel to a certain extent I represent the Venus Project. I'm not an official point of contact, and I haven't studied extensively all of these 800 lectures, obviously. But what we're advocating here is a complete rethink, is a new approach to everything we do in the world, and I certainly advocate for that 100%. So that's where I'm probably getting at with the grassroots, is the more just human individuals that we get who get on board with, we need to do this, we need to take a serious look at this, and we need to put what we've got into it. And I like to say we need to put our attention and our energy and effort and our brain power into just learning and studying and researching all we can about it, so that we can then represent it, and that we can promote it, and that we can all, within each person, we have our own network and our group of people around us. We can influence out to that group, and more people within that group will then represent and build out from their circle, et cetera, et cetera. That's, I guess, what I mean by grassroots, and by having more points of contact and more people to represent, so it isn't all falling on you, and that we aren't only hearing from Roxanne when we have an interview. You know, you won't be the only person in the world to interview to talk about the Venus Project, that a lot more people can talk about it.
And they can now.
Yeah.
And I always try and encourage that to, you know, if I have an interview, I try and pass it on to other people as well. And when people come to, because you're right, they know Jacque and Roxanne from a certain amount of years, but when people come to interview me or at the Venus Project, I always try and make sure they interview other people who are there as well.
Good. Well, so much love and appreciation, and of course extensionality for you and for all the work you're doing. And you've clearly devoted your life to this, and I'm welling up with emotion here because I appreciate it so much. People aren't doing this for the world. I don't see any other program where this is what's at play. I don't see people devoting their life to, you know, I know a few people within the Venus Project who are devoting their lives to volunteering and to representing and being a part of it and helping bring it to life, whether it's transcribing Jacque's work or making the videos and stuff like we're doing as well. But to get the word out and help it grow and help develop, and of course the matching grant campaign here is just infusing more resources towards what you're doing. But gosh, just so much appreciation for you've devoted your life to this, to Jacque and to the cause and to the work for all of our benefit. And what are you getting out of it? You're not getting rich off it. You're not over there driving a Rolls Royce around Venus, Florida by any means. And
well, to me, I got so much out of it that was so important to my life and my knowledge. I hate to think where I would have been if I hadn't met Jacque. I feel so lucky with everything I've experienced with him. I would have never been able to do that. And everything that you're doing is making it so much more possible that these ideas spread, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I'm giving a lot of what I've got to it, and I am a philanthropist, and I've been looking over the last number of years since I came into money with how can I be most responsible for how I share that and what the causes I represent and contribute to are. And I come into thinking about an 80-20 thing now, where I'll give 20% of what I give towards triage for now, I call it. People are hurting and they're hungry and they need our help. But 80% for me has got to go to the future and the big plans and the how are we going to find our way forward, and what are we going to do that's encompassing enough to where these problems are handled and we don't have to nickel and dime 20% to things, that we put 80% towards the big plans for the future that really solve things. And I have left the Venus Project in my estate plan. I want to encourage others to do that as well. I'd like to help create a group of people who are proclaiming that we have contributed and remembered the Venus Project in our estate plan, and that we've literally left money to the Venus Project, because if it's one thing in this current society and economic system that the Venus Project needs, is the money to get done what you need to do so that we can do this. Let's do this. It's wonderful to talk about it, and there's so much work to be done, and people are on it, but we need that amplification, that bullhorn to tell the world there's a better way. There's more we can do. There are alternatives, and Jacque, a brilliant man, spelled out so many of them for us, and I want to put my resources and my time and energy and attention into helping bring this more to life, and help evolve it into existence in a bigger way.
It needs that tremendously. Yeah. And you know, once we got popular and more people learned about this and more people learned about the direction, they said, well, how come you're charging? How come you're charging for your books or your tours? And I always say, well, the tax collector doesn't come over and say, you're doing wonderful social work, you don't have to pay your taxes, or you don't have to pay your electric bill because we really like what you're doing. It doesn't happen that way. And even you know, volunteering, the volunteers have done so much and have taken it farther than, you know, I could ever do it or Jacque could ever do it. But I've learned in a lot of ways we're not going to be able to do what we need to do just through volunteers alone, because this culture has got it wrapped up so much that, you know, it's very hard with your family, with your jobs, with, your mortgages and the kids and your responsibility to be able to volunteer what this will take to happen, you know, what it'll take this to make it happen.
Yeah.
I want to this to make it happen.
I want to read, this is a little comment that I had made on social media, because I was, I even say it in here. So they were asking about the film, and are you going to charge for the film? And, you know, I kind of hear this, how dare you charge for a film that advocates for no money in the world, and et cetera. And so the film will be available on the website and on video on demand, and for $3 to rent the film. And a portion of those proceeds is going to go directly to the Venus Project. We're bracing ourselves for the backlash of criticism, but had to make this difficult decision. We obviously, definitely, and completely support creating a resource-based economy, but currently live in a world where rent, utilities, and food are not free. Yeah. Therefore, the film will not be either for the time being. We do not want to leave anyone out from watching this film if money is a hardship, so codes will be available for people who request those who need them. And we love you, we care about you, we are working full time to support the Venus Project ourselves and for better, healthier, smarter ways for humans to live and coexist on this precious planet together. Until we get there, we're all pretty well stuck subsisting within the system under which we live. And that's, you're in the same boat we are.
And $3 is not much of a contribution in financial terms if they can afford it.
Yeah.
To be able to do that too.
Yeah. So I think you're in that same position. The Venus Project needs your money, needs your support because we live in this world. What you're betting on, paying for, what you're investing in is a future where we don't need that, where we're not limited by that, where we're not divided by that, and that we are all able to come together as one human family, nurture ourselves and each other and our precious planet.
And your skills, people's skills are just as important to help make this progress.
We'll reiterate again, at thevenusproject.com there is a Get Involved section, and there are all these teams of volunteers, whether it's helping to fundraise or helping get the word out on social media or other ways, and whether it's bringing your highly skilled set of architecture, civil engineering, industrial design, all of these elements that are needed to be able to create big facilities so we can get the next big thing going. Transcription ability so we can capture all of Jacque's materials.
Or proofreaders or publishers, because we want to publish that material and get it out there as well. We want to make volumes of his work, and then we want to categorize what's in each lecture after we get it transcribed and make specific books too.
Come forward and make yourselves be known to us and to the Venus Project, and it's a big undertaking, and we need all the help we could get and all the advocacy and promotion that we can get. Help bring this into existence. Before you criticize, and before you wag a finger, and before you ask, well, why haven't they done it already, and where's the first city? Ask yourself what you've done, and ask yourself, most importantly, what you can do. And the more that you participate, and the more that you bring to this, the more you're going to help bring it to life. And that's where the satisfaction comes from. I feel so good about what I'm doing to help represent something that I really believe in. And it feels great, and it's worth it.
I can understand that.
So join the conversation, make a comment, come join the effort to bring the Venus Project to life more and more and more. It already is to life. You have a property, you have materials, you have a lot of volunteers on board, you have a lot of videos and audio and stuff. Let's keep the momentum going and keep expanding on what's already here and make it available in more languages so it's available to more people in the world. That's what is needed, and the more you participate, the better you'll feel, and the faster this is going to come about.
There's a long way to go yet.
Yeah, and if you know billionaires, and you know politicians, and you know people with a large reach, and influencers with a large audience and network, talk to them about the Venus Project. Find out as much as you can yourself so that when you go to represent it, you'll be all the more convincing and have a better chance at getting them on board.
Right. So it's not misinterpreted.
Yeah. Thank you
Very good.
so
Thank you.
much for
Thank
joining
you.
us and for being here with us. We are so excited to bring our new film, A World Worth Imagining, Jacque Fresco, the Man with the Plan, to life. It launches on 11/11/2019, and that's at 11:11 a.m. Venus, Florida time. That's Eastern Standard Time. So from then on, it'll be available at least on our website at souldocumentary.love and our Vimeo channel at Soul Documentary. We haven't yet talked with you about putting the film on the Venus Project website. There are links and everything to us, and we're working on that as well to make it as widely as available as possible. It will be $3 for a rental and viewing of the film at first, and we'll see where that goes. We need to continue to support what we're doing and to share some of that with you for what you're doing, and we're supporting you obviously in many ways. So we thank you for your support and for being here, and just such an honor to bring Roxanne into our show, Soul Listen. So thank you so much for joining us, and let's do this. Let's create a better world. We can't stay on this path. It's not sustainable.
That's true.
All right. So before we go, we were going to reach over and do a nice chair hug here. Share some love.
My pleasure, my honor. Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
everything you're
much.
doing.
My pleasure. It's all, I couldn't see it any other way. It's just my life's work. Thanks for joining.